So bringing life to digital products. In my experience of doing UX and product design and UI, there's a point, and I think many designers must have this same feeling at a certain point in their careers. When they use products, they have some emotional response or feeling from it, and they want to uncover why. Like, why is this feeling that I'm feeling? Where is it coming from? What are the cues that are causing that? And I started to dig quite a bit deeper into what I'd call, the aliveness of a product. If I'd spent a lot of time in e-commerce, for example, some shopping sites just felt so cold, while others, you wanted to use them again and again, and it almost became habitual to use it. And I wanted to understand that better, and that's where this presentation had come from. So I hope you enjoy it. If I told you to meet me under the clock at Melbourne Central in Melbourne, Australia, if you lived in Melbourne, you'd likely know what I was referring to. This scene that you see here in front of you is a shopping mall in the heart of the city of Melbourne. It's a bustling, active, and constantly energetic space in a much larger mall. You can see people coming and going to work, heading off to uni, meeting with friends, shopping, all sorts of things in this small space. So when I ask you to meet me under the clock, you immediately have an emotional connection to that space. It conjures up thoughts of that bustling and all those people around you and the sights and the sounds, and you know exactly where to go because of that. If we break down what this space is, you'll see the clock at the top, and every hour it opens up and animates, and things are moving around, and it's playing music, and it draws a crowd of tourists taking photos and kids looking at it. But you also have so many other things. You have a bank of ATMs with lineups of people taking money. There's a huge train station underneath, and this is the access to that. There's a huge promotional court in the middle, and car manufacturers showing off their latest car. There's independent retailers selling knickknacks. There's name brands. There's a video wall. There's all these things that contribute into this liveliness. And amongst all of that is this school of fish of people swimming through that, and it makes for an alive space. And when we think of, is this alive or not, we actually, as people, we have these conscious and subconscious cues that we're picking up on all the time to determine whether a place or an event or a product meets the criteria of being alive. I mean, we're very fortunate living in Vietnam to have an environment that is so full of variety. Whether we take a bird's eye view to look at the landscape and see all the different architecture and eras of architecture and the styles and heights and all these things, right down to street level, where it becomes even more interesting in the signage and the color use. It makes it alive. I can imagine I know the answer from most of you watching this when I ask you, if there's two restaurants or cafes or bars side by side, one is empty and there's no music and the waiter's in the back of the room looking at his phone, versus the one next door that's alive and there's music, people laughing, I can guess which one you want to go to. There's no doubt in my mind. The other year I went to the Saigon Rum Festival, and it's this bustling place and there's music and everybody's having a lot of fun and laughing. You could say that the event is actually about tasting rum, but in fact, we're social creatures. The reason why we're actually there is for experiencing rum with others. Rum almost becomes the secondary thing. It's the vehicle or the means for us to congregate together and enjoy each other's company. But how does all that translate into a digital product? That's maybe not so certain. You pick up one mobile app or you look at a website and it feels soulless and lifeless, while another, you can't pick up enough and you're on it every day and you want to be on it every day. You know, that soulless one that you only use when you absolutely have to, your banking app because you have to transfer money to your landlord. It's why do you have that feeling where you just don't want to use it versus one that you do? And as product people, we consider this in our design approach. We consider the design aesthetic. We look at its styling and whether it's modern and contemporary and speaks to the audience. Is it usable? Can users achieve their goals? Is it functional? Do the functions support getting to those goals? Are the behaviors of the application aligned with what users want? And does it convert? Like, are people buying things? Are they signing up for stuff? Whatever your success matrix is. But have we ever asked, does it have an aliveness to it? And should we? What constitutes being alive? It was interesting when I did the research on this, and I'm looking through the web, it's not exactly cut and dry. There are differing definitions as to what constitutes something being alive. But for the purpose of this, I've tried to put it into two buckets. One is the aliveness of the product itself. Does it exhibit a soul or properties and characteristics of being alive? So is the content engaging? Does the visuals, are they stimulating? Is it static or is it very organic and it's constantly changing and evolving, and every time you come back there's something new to explore? The other part is togetherness. As I said before, we're social creatures. So having evidence that there's other people using it and contributing to it and being part of this lends to the aliveness of the product itself. So given that most, maybe even all of you that are watching this have in the past or now or likely in the future will work on some kind of e-commerce product, that's what I wanted to serve as the main theme of this journey that we're going to take through to discover aliveness. And during this journey, you may say that, you know, some of these ideas and concepts that I go through seem very challenging or maybe even impossible, depending on the tech that you have and the time, the budget, and that your manager may just say no, or the client may say no. There's any number of people that are dying to say no to extra effort to make a product more than just the basics. And I've confronted that many times in my career, and many of you may have too. And it's worth considering pushing back. And what I say by that is, if you pitch an idea of a product being alive because you believe that certain features or things that you want to include into it will help that aliveness, if there's a no response, figure out why. Is it a technology constraint? Is it a time constraint? What are the factors that are blocking it? And scale it back. Adapt it and change it. It may not be the original vision, but get it to a point where it is acceptable as a starting point and being able to move forward. And that's worth thinking about during the presentation when you see some examples which are quite elaborate. And then importantly, that these are just ideas that I've discovered online, and they only serve as starting points. You know, these are just ideas so that you can then take those and jump into your own way of thinking and the things that are perfect for your users. So it's not a slide deck to say these are the things that you need to do, but just as ideas. So let's get started. The first is about content depth and richness. When we're thinking about e-commerce, it's an interesting challenge because, you know, traditionally we would go to a store, and in the store they'd have a variety of models or styles or whatever for the product that we want to purchase, and we could touch it and feel it and look at it and feel the box, its weight. Maybe they have some on demonstration and you can open things up and push buttons and do all these things to sort of interrogate it to see if this is the right product for you. Does it feel right for you? And when you're shopping online, we're attempting to simulate that to some degree. A shopper has a checklist of things on their mind, and the website is trying to check those off through the experience of looking at that product digitally. Let me give you an example. This is the mid-range rice cooker. Nothing particularly great about it and nothing basic about it. And this is a product detail page on a typical shopping website online. Any of you could go to this and find it. And you'll see that the arrangement is fairly standard. If we scroll through it, all the usual suspects are there in terms of ratings and a brief text description of the product and some of the dimensions and details about what the product is. Ask yourself how you feel. Do you feel like that checklist that's in your mind, if you were shopping for rice cookers, has it satisfied that checklist? You know the price, you know what it looks like, you know some basic features, maybe the warranty, maybe how much it costs to ship to you, but do you feel confident to purchase the product based on this? Let's look at another example. This here is another rice cooker, very comparable, same tier of rice cooker, but a different website and a different experience. Same top relatively. We'll look at related products. We'll look at other products that are by the same manufacturer. And here we go. Now we get into the meat of it. A close-up of the device next to some food that is produced, close-up of the dashboard, scenes of families wanting to use it, more food displays, graphics showing that this can actually cook food around the clock. All of your meals can come from this miracle device. Nice dessert. You can see she's loving the meal from it. Look, they're force-feeding their kids. Look at all the different food variety that comes from this. Another close-up of the dashboard. Look at all the variety. Now we start getting to the technology of the device, how the different layers of the rice cooker add to the technology. And we can see here it actually cooking and the movement of the water and how the rice is prepared perfectly for you. We can see what's in the box and different features and how to clean it, that it whistles when it's done, the power outlet, all the imaginable specifications, dimensions, so you know if it fits in your kitchen, exactly what's in the box, and a certificate of authentication at the end. How does that feel now when you're trying to compare those two experiences as to whether it satisfies your needs as a consumer to purchase the product? I mean, I don't know about you, but after seeing that, I want to buy the rice cooker. I'm so involved in the level of detail of how it will impact my life if I purchase it. Now, if we look at ratings, reviews, and questions in an e-commerce perspective, it's such a great extension to that. You know, the product detail page is a manufacturer's lens. It's their view on their own product. But when there's ratings and reviews, it's your fellow shoppers vouching or telling you to stay away from products and giving their feedback, often very rich feedback that people are willing to give about their experiences. That same rice cooker, we're now looking at the ratings and reviews section of the same page. Now, when they've gone and they've produced such a beautiful product detail page, I can assure you their conversion rate is very good. And one way we can indicate that, which you may not have seen unless you start looking through the statistics here, is that they have 630,000 product reviews submitted by their users. 630,000. That means that over 500,000 people have spent their time and effort to write about their experiences of a rice cooker. This boggles my mind. If you think of cities being the size of 500,000 people, they wrote about a rice cooker, not even a special one. What blows my mind even more is that of those people, 1,900 of them decided to make a video about their rice cooker. And this is really a stunning amount of content that's been produced. And it's those videos that have such a compelling and unique way of being able to show the rice cooker machine in every single detail. People opening the machine, people putting food into it, people pressing the buttons, every imaginable configuration you can imagine, are all being demonstrated from slightly different angles, from different people and different contexts of use. It brings the product to life in the way that the manufacturer never would be able to, because that's what people want to know. When I actually get this real product that hasn't been photoshopped to death, what am I really getting? Is it really good quality? Does it really do all the things that they say it will do? And these product reviews are such an incredible way of doing that. And it's not just rice cookers. Tons of the products all had these incredible video reviews. Chicken, they deliver frozen chicken to customers, and instead of it being rice cooking machines, can you imagine this? It's hundreds and hundreds of videos of people showing each other what their chef capabilities are to make their own chicken with that product. And you can see some of them are in the bag frozen, some of them they've cooked them. It goes on and on and on. And it's not only product reviews. What we've done here is created a community. Can you imagine the stickiness of this? If you've put in your own creation here and posted it, would you not want to know who's thumbed up or who's given it 5 stars or who else has contributed to that same thread? It is an amazing way to create aliveness, a product detail page. To get that level of contribution into a review system is not easy. It's very much a chicken or egg thing. If it's empty, nobody wants to contribute to it. And it's a tough balancing act to get that level of contribution into a system. It's interesting, when I purchased a water dispenser from a retailer, the next time I made a purchase, it said, hey, by the way, you bought that water dispenser a month ago. Do you mind reviewing it? And when you leave that, they'll email you later and say, we'll pay you 10,000 dong to write a text review and show a photo. Is that expensive at the scale of these retailers? Absolutely. If everybody took them up on that offer, it would cost a fortune. But to me, this is marketing dollars well spent, because you've now created a thriving environment, or you've at least kickstarted what could become a community. If you can imagine Amazon in its early days, I believe much of its success actually came from its well-implemented use of a review system. Many shoppers, even if they didn't buy on Amazon, would still check Amazon's reviews to see if a product was good. Let's contrast that now with one that isn't a good example. Say, for example, you're wanting to buy a fish aquarium, and getting into looking after fish, you start to realize not all aquariums are the same. The materials, the construction, there's many factors that you have to consider when you're buying this key piece of looking after fish. And what we see here is a clear picture of the product itself, and then you have this long list of people asking questions and no responses. But it's this strange and oddly disturbing way that they've presented how much it hasn't been responded. There's so many 0 answers. It's been reinforced so many times. There's 0 stars. There's these gray, faceless avatars representing everybody. It feels cold. It feels dark. It makes you wonder if anybody's home. If I buy this aquarium, is anyone going to send it? If they're not responding to customer questions at the beginning, how am I going to get this product? Worse yet, if I get the product and something is wrong, will they respond to me when I need help? These are the things that it starts to conjure when you have these faceless, answerless, starless experiences. Social proof. It's very important that us as creatures, we look to each other to determine whether something is good or not. We look to our peers. And social proof is often a good concept to look to when trying to translate on a digital product whether other people are liking something or not. Now, all of you, you've probably gone to travel websites and you've booked maybe a hotel or a flight or any number of things. The travel industry are the masters at social proof. Here we have an example of a travel booking page. I've set a time and I've set the place, which is Los Angeles, and we have a number of hotel options here. But what's important is to break out all the different social proof parts that are there that are driving a sense of urgency, so that you'll feel compelled to buy it because so many other people are, and that you'd be missing out if you hadn't. Let's look at some examples. Right at the top, hurry, over 56% of the properties are fully booked. Right away, we're creating a sense of urgency that things are disappearing, and if we don't act fast, we'll miss out. And we have here, booked 19 times since yesterday, and it's 28% off. So what it's saying is, other people are booking it, and right at this moment, we're going to give you a discount on it. It's this perfect combination. Booked 68 times this week. 94% of the guests that went there absolutely loved it. So what they're saying is, everybody that's gone there is going to vouch for it. This is the place to go. You should definitely book it. You just missed out. It's a snooze you lose. They're showing you hotels that you couldn't even get. Just if you came just a little bit earlier, you could have got this hotel. It's just driving that pressure. Every single tactic, it's like a boxing match. It's just one thing after another to just get you to buy a hotel room. And then finally, it's just assuring you, yeah, Los Angeles is very popular. You picked a good place. All of this starting to come together to make you feel assured that you're in the right place, you're going to get good value because other people have too. And it's not just travel. Many other industries are taking advantage of this. This is a couch. And apparently 7 people bought one just like this recently. Now, how many days have transpired for that 7 to have bought it? Who knows? But the fact is, 7 people have bought it. Here's a fascinating take when we look at social proof plus reviews. I think any of you, if you've bought a mobile phone in the past, that buying experience, you're often wondering about the camera. How good's the camera quality? You'll go to the manufacturer site, you see all these beautiful photos that have been taken. You go, my gosh, is my camera that I buy actually going to be like that? Is that what they're going to be? And you're a little bit suspicious. But when you combine ratings and reviews, where you're taking the photos from the customers that are doing the reviews, you suddenly have 10,000, almost 11,000 examples of photos from that exact phone. Does that increase your level of certainty as to whether this camera suits your needs or not? It's such a beautiful blending of 2 things into one, specifically for that particular product line. And it's just fantastic. You now have so many ways to determine whether this is a suitable product for you. Another way to bring life into digital is a live chat. But it's how you implement that live chat that makes such a difference. Here's my bank account. Now, obviously, I've censored the more important stuff for the purpose of this presentation. But what I want to draw to your attention is the live chat and how impersonal it is and how cold it is. It's coloring, it's messaging, its general feel. How approachable is it? How much does it invite you to want to talk to someone that wants to help you and is there for you? Contrast that to this product, where at the bottom there's a friendly smiling face. Let's chat. So right away, does that slightly increase the aliveness of talking online with someone? This site here, it's literally just a face bubble. And when you pop it up though, the important thing is that it's mimicking what you do in a regular chat app with your friends and your family and colleagues every day, resembling a normal context that you'd be messaging someone. And so it's a fantastic way of just aligning with how you normally talk with people, except in a customer service perspective. Video and media. Now, obviously, I don't need to tell you that video helps to bring a liveliness into a digital product, but the implementation, again, is critical. Here we have sort of a very web-based brand that makes men's shavers. Now, if you look at this spread, you'd probably say it's a nicely designed homepage. There's a clear focus on the product, there's a clear message, conversion is probably pretty good. But when we bring video into that experience, does it not change it? Taking the product out of the packaging, seeing the size of it, seeing the products next to each other, seeing the application of the product being dispensed from the container, that brings such aliveness to a product that until that moment felt quite static. Amazon experimented with something called Amazon Live, and it would have these videos of various lifestyle scenes, someone playing on the beach with their kids and what have you, and then underneath would have all of the products seen inside of the video for sale, and you click the button to find out more and to buy the product. While I don't believe they still do this, it was an interesting early on attempt to marry video with product placement and purchasing. But all of that pales in comparison to what's coming down the road. Already in markets like China, video selling has exploded, and there's millions and millions of people buying and selling C2C and B2C online with the use of videos. And what an amazing forum it is to sell products. And you can interact live with the seller and ask them things about it, and they respond in real time. If you're talking about clothing, they may ask you to do things like show a close-up of the sleeve, or if it's a hat, show the inside of the hat, any number of things. It's an unlimited configuration. You're no longer bound to a product detail page or a pre-made static video. It is completely organic. This is something that is going to take over the world, most certainly in all the different markets. This is going to become a primary sales channel, and it's something for us to consider when making e-commerce related products. What if we took that a step further even? What if it's not just the seller selling products and we can text chat with them? What if we're actually part of that experience? This company sells a huge range of eyeglassware, and what you see here is the model that I've selected called Hang Time. Its price, and it looks like a pretty normal product detail page until you move your mouse cursor over the face. And there you see an incredibly fluent ability to see what those glasses like as the person tilts their head, and you can select the model depending on what's closest to you to put those glasses on. But what if we went even further than that? What if I want to see what they're like on me? Now we can do that. Through this process that asked me to do a few simple steps by moving and tilting my head, and it's capturing that on my webcam, and then finally placing a product in front of me so that it can determine all the proportions of the video that it's seeing. We then get the magic of me being immersed into this experience and being able to see what those glasses are like on myself. And I can tilt my head and do the same things that I could have done with that avatar, but it's myself. What an amazingly alive experience that is. Technologically, this is not easy territory, but boy, does it spark your imagination of what can I do with a webcam? What can I do with all these things that are available to us now? Content structure and layout. There are many, many websites now that have simple grid patterns and everything's in a card and a grid and blocks of content. But tell me if you feel when you see something like this where there's layers, there's intricate things, there's stuff to look at, and it's interesting, whether that makes you more engaged with it, if it makes you feel more alive with it. For example, if we look at something traditional, like a toaster oven, what you can see here is a standard grid format at the top. But once we start digging into the different product lines, you can see that there's overlapping and movement and different layers of the content. It just makes it more visually striking and interesting. You know, how many grids can you possibly look at in your lifetime? And mixing that with traditional style box grids. But it's a nice way of breaking that up. You know, in some cases in e-commerce, it's not easy to have that level of layout and sophistication of the design all the way through a site. Sometimes you have to have grids. But to break it up with these larger, beautiful pieces makes such a huge difference. You know, Bellroy was very famous for making these small wallets that fit a lot inside of them. And they did a beautiful job of this product detail page, integrating video so that you can see all the different colors and how it reacts when you're opening and closing it, and then goes into a nice detail about all the different factors and you know, close-ups. And what does it store in a single wallet? What can you hold in it? And when we're talking about layout, this is what I want to focus on. Isn't it just so interesting? You're kind of looking through it all, and what you realize as soon as you start to zero in on any of those elements is that they're custom made. It's a Bellroy driver's license. It's a Bellroy bank, and so you start looking at all the intricate detail and the effort that they put into making this a unique experience. And it's so much more than just dumping a bunch of things that haven't had that level of customization done. And I can assure you it doesn't get unnoticed. Interactivity. These are charging stations. And if you see these in a typical isolation shot in a product detail page, you're trying to think to yourself, well, if I have my phone on that, what would it look like? And when this company has gone to the trouble of producing that so that when you hover over it, objects are placed on there, it's a beautiful way of making it more interactive and, again, more alive. Limbo state handling. Now, limbo states, there's a few types of waiting states. There's the states where you may enter in details into a contact form and you press submit, and there's a moment until a reply comes back to say, thank you, we've submitted it, and your job is done. A limbo state, however, I would define as this indefinite amount of time between when you've requested something and when it actually occurs. And a perfect example would be when you are ride-hailing and you get your driver and you book the car that you're going to have pick you up, and that limbo time between when you've done the booking and when the car arrives. It's an unknown. It may give you an estimation, but ultimately you don't know the time of arrival. Let's give you an example. Some of you may have worked at offices or have been to offices where the elevator system has this kind of a dashboard. It's not the traditional up and down buttons. It's something like this. You click the floor and then it tells you which elevator to go to. And if you're like me or anybody that I've ever been in contact with, you realize that these are actually quite frustrating elevators and often take a long time to open up and for you to get inside. And so when you work at an office like this, the first day you get in after waiting a long time and the elevator says, sorry to keep you waiting. It actually tells you that. And you go, oh, geez, well, that's really sweet. I wasn't expecting my elevator to apologize for its incredibly long time to get to me. But then it's the first week and every day it said, sorry to keep you waiting. And it's like, that's funny. It's been telling me this every day. I don't know, is it serious? But then it's that first month when you've had it almost every day, sometimes multiple times that day, saying sorry to keep you waiting. And you want to strangle it because, well, you just get frustrated, but you realize that elevators don't have necks, so you can't. And after a year, well, I don't need to tell you how you feel when it's apologetic about this. Now, in Mitsubishi website, they refer to this as a destination-oriented allocation system. This is what they call these types of elevators. But from a user's perspective, when they have no sense of progress or momentum because there's no numbers above any of the elevators, it suddenly really changes your perspective of time. It may be the identical amount of time from a regular elevator. However, since you don't know, you can't see that if you're on the first floor and it's on the 6th and you see it change to the 5th, it's a sense of progress that's been created, and that's been eliminated from this type of system. So it creates an indeterminate amount of time. It also increases the perceived delay of when it has arrived to you because of that. And what many people have experienced is that when it told them to go to elevator B to be picked up, it often gets rerouted to elevator C without them being informed, creating inconsistency. All of this amounts to not meeting expectations. Let me give you another example. In a previous time that I presented this presentation, I needed a presenter's remote and purchased one. I purchased it on July 31st, and on that day I checked the status of my order online, and it said that it's successful. Later that day I came and saw that it was doing something. It was on its way to being processed at the retailer. Now keep in mind, I was doing my presentation on the 7th. On August 1st, I came back to check and it remained the same, identical. August 2nd, exactly the same. August 3rd, which is the day that it was estimated to arrive, everything's the same. Starting to get worried for sure. I get a message, 4:10 in the afternoon. Your order ain't coming today, it's coming on the 5th. I look back at the website, well, it still says the 3rd, everything's still the same, but it's August 4th. August 5th, I go downstairs to my apartment. There's all the rows of couriers delivering everything except my remote control. August 5th, 5:15 in the afternoon. We're so sorry, we'll send it to you tomorrow, we promise. August 6th, I log in. Revised time is August 8th, the day after the presentation, and it's apparently finished packaging and it's ready for shipping. August 6th in the afternoon, I get a call from the driver, 3:48 in the afternoon. I'm so sorry, sir. Can we be there in 30 minutes? Yes, please. Call center calls. Is everything okay? Have you been contacted? Has the product come yet? Yes, everything's okay. Finally, late in the afternoon, I get my product. So why am I harping on this limbo state so much? Why two large examples? Because those two examples are a roller coaster every day. If you're in a business tower and you're late for your appointment, you're late for a meeting, the interview that's happening, whatever, it's such a sense of challenge and friction in your life to be waiting for that elevator. But more importantly, what applies to most of you is that when somebody buys something from your website, say for example you bought an iPhone, the anticipation of getting that in your hands is just so overwhelming as a user. You are so intently focused on getting that product in your hand as quickly as possible and without any problems. And so it's this emotional roller coaster that they're going through. They're buying for a birthday, they're buying for Christmas, any number of things. And there are millions of shipments happening all the time around the world every single day. If you're selling something, you're likely shipping something. It's worth reflecting on that roller coaster. You know, when this retailer was seeing that I was having problems, they suddenly started calling me. I was involved with the call center. They were walking me through this. They did an amazing job of making sure that I was satisfied at the end of the day. However, as product designers, we need to be taking some of that burden off of the call centers. The technology should be alive enough to make some of these judgment calls, to be doing more of the forecasting, to be giving us a better understanding of where that driver is, where that product is in proximity to me. It all came down to people having to make old school phone calls for such a critical purchase for me as a user. Let's shift gears to reciprocity. So with this, what I mean is, as humans and even as behaviors in animals, when we give something, we want something in exchange. And an interesting example is when you're designing, say, for example, content on a website, and all of us, I'm sure, are creating some level of content somewhere on the internet. We have to be mindful of that reciprocity. Let me use this as an example. This is an article about cars. And when you actually strip away the meat of this article, only down to the essence of the value to the user, it is a former shadow of itself. It's almost unidentifiable except for the main image. Because there's so much take, give me, buy my stuff, look at my things, when you scrape all that out, there is almost nothing left. As creatures that are alive, we resent this take attitude of this content. The likelihood of me going back to this publication is very low. Empty state handling. This is a typical e-commerce site, and empty state handling is probably not an exciting topic, but up until very recently, most shopping carts, when they had nothing placed in them, just said, your cart's empty, there's nothing in here. Now we're seeing a much more interesting and intricately drawn illustrations and little messages that encourage you to do the shopping, to add things to that cart, tips to get it started, categories to go to, any number of things to jumpstart getting things into that cart. That is your key way to make conversion. It should be treated with that level of detail. Micro interactions. Even small details in a user interface design have a huge impact on the overall feel of the product. Let me give you an example of Google Play Store. Most of you have probably had experience with it. But when you look at a micro interaction level of how smoothly and beautifully this interaction has been done, you can see that the carousel locks into place and there's a smoothness, there's a transition to the animation. All of that lends to something that just feels good to use. You want to shop through there because you're not going to a carousel having to click, one step at a time, getting a different product. It's just fluent and natural and intuitive, and it makes it feel alive. Light animations. Now, animation does somehow make things come to life. Anybody that's watched a cartoon or an animated movie knows this. But how do we strategically place that into our digital products to support the content of the site? Now, this online mattress manufacturer has done a beautiful job of doing this. Let's scroll through their site and see how they've carefully and strategically applied very light animations to support things. Thinking of purchasing a mattress, you want to know how it feels. That pressing down action gives you some sort of a gauge. You can see the air vapors coming through the mattress to sort of illustrate that the airflow comes through it. And then there's a beautiful social integration into here that categorizes all the different positive responses. And then we have here a mannequin that is laying on the bed, so you can kind of see how it interacts with your body. But I think you might have missed something. Let me show you that again. Watch very carefully. Did you just see that? The mannequin actually just took a breath. It breathes. Does that not feel alive? They could have just put a static image in there and would have very clearly demonstrated it, but it's that extra touch of just that little breath that a percentage of people would have picked up on and appreciated. Such attention to detail may not have taken much effort to actually do the animation, but it just brings a little bit of life to this product. And there's so many other ways that we can add life to products. Voice control. Everybody that's watching this video has voice control on their phone. They have a voice assistant. It's either Siri or it's Google or any number of these. It has not been leveraged here to the point that it's been in other countries. The percentage of voice requests to devices in America, for example, is through the roof, and that will slowly trickle out around the world. There are other markets as well that are primarily using voice instead of text chat because it works better with the language use in that particular community. And what's more natural than when I picked up my phone and said, okay, Google, I want to buy a men's pair of brown leather shoes, size 46. And then voila, here are a whole bunch of examples that immediately lined up with that request. It's natural, it's alive. You're having a conversation, you're conversing with the product. Currency of information. I'm reminded every time I log into my bank account that the currency and how up-to-date information is has a profound impact about how you feel about a digital product. I'm reminded of this because every time I log into my bank, the news flash on the login page is that it now has a reset password online feature dated September 3rd, 2015. And for the past 5 years, you could know that the reset password online feature has been enabled. It makes you question what's happening behind the scenes. It's the same as the reviews that don't get answered. What's happening behind the scenes at this bank? What else is 5 years old that I should know about when relying on my money being there? So currency of information in every regard, whether you have a blog or any number of things, it doesn't go unnoticed, all the way down to the copyright date in the footer. People pay attention. Adaptive and smart content. It's interesting, when we were talking about aquariums before, and I wanted to purchase an aquarium heater, and you do a search and it comes up with all the results, and you buy one, and all the content of that shopping experience shifts and it adapts because it knows, oh, John wants a heater, and shows many relevant products all the time, everywhere you go. And when you purchase that, and it was purchased months ago, and you're still seeing tons and tons of heaters everywhere, you think to yourself, how many heaters do I possibly need? It's an interesting, I guess, demonstration of how artificial intelligence and how these systems work need to be more alive. If I came to any one of you today and said, hey, guess what? I just bought a new Honda Airblade. It's a beautiful bike. I really enjoy it. I'm so glad I purchased it. If we met up again tomorrow and you came to me and said, hey, would you like to buy a Honda Airblade? I'd be thinking, well, this person is nuts. I just told him I bought one. Why do I need one now? So it's not just about having adaptive content at the beginning to shift that buying experience to what it knows that I've sent signals for that I want to purchase. It's about the after effects of when I've purchased it and it knows I've purchased it. And instead of just showing me more of the same thing, showing me contextually relevant products that can be paired with that or likely needed because it now knows many things about me. Notification trays. Again, nobody's particularly excited about the concept of notification trays, but it's a fascinating way to add life to an e-commerce product. Some sites, when you become a customer, that notification tray is empty. There's nothing there, and it tells you this. It tells you that we have notifications for you. While as others, such as this, the moment that you come in there, there's immediately all sorts of notifications. This is a large company with millions of products and tons of different sales and promotions and events and things to do. How could it not have notifications? Through that centralized channel of notifications, it's bundled together all the best things that are happening on that site, giving it life. And finally, written content. How many times written content is not factored into the equation of whether a product feels alive or not? Anybody that's read an incredible book that they're engrossed into will tell you the power of the written word bringing things to life. And anybody that is in conversion rate optimization as a specialist will tell you one of the first things they think of is, what is the messaging? What is this product saying to captivate the person and to communicate all the things that it needs to in the right way, the right pace, and the right amount of wording for an internet audience. It really can, when it's crafted properly, bring a product to life. So you're probably considering many of these ideas before. In fact, you've probably seen them and thought maybe you could use them. But what I want to say is for us to shift how we're thinking about this, and rather than being considered rather consider them as ways of bringing your product to life, methods to bring life to your product. And I think by doing that, you actually approach their implementation differently and for different reasons. For an action plan, let's go through a few things that we can take away right away to maybe consider the aliveness of the products that you may be involved in now or down the road. And it may be worth considering adopting consideration of aliveness in your design process. This isn't a major component or a huge step. It's just somewhere it needs to be considered and reviewed when you're building the product, what factors are making it feel alive, and to create a checklist based on the uniqueness of your product, your market, your category, your industry. What would constitute it being alive? We've gone through many examples of e-commerce. What about your industry? It should also be part of the design system and the content strategy. When you're building a design system, are there things that can be in there, like light animations and things like that, that help lend to have life in the product? You should consider actually what is the return on investment. If this increases the experience of the product, can we calculate that into number values so that the cost can be considered an investment and that the amount of purchases coming from that investment will make it worth it? Conduct workshops. By having a workshop where we're all sitting together as a design team and a product team and any number of people coming into that workshop and assessing it and having a real honest discussion around, does it feel alive and why does it feel alive, and realizing that everybody's take on it in that workshop will differ. There are many things that we can do, and a lot of that comes from leadership. It comes from the leadership to say that they want life in these products and are going to execute various things and measures and process steps to make that happen. The last thing is that when we're making a product that feels alive, do we not have more respect for it? You know, when I talk over and over again about fish tanks and that, it's because I've taken that on as a hobby, and when I see those fish swimming around, and sometimes they're excited and they want to have dinner, and other times they're slow and lethargic and they're sometimes fighting amongst each other, you realize that they're all alive beings, they're creatures, and you have immense respect for them because of that. Does that not translate into a product that feels slightly alive versus ones that do not? Do you respect your own product more because of that? Something to think about and ponder. I'll leave you with this. By putting your heart and soul into a product, the product will have soul. Thank you very much.